If you two don't knock it off, I'll take that damn PlayStation and throw it in the river on my way to work. I had just defeated my older brother at Madden 2006 on our PlayStation 2. I was happy I won, but was not gloating. Drew just simply hated to lose. He threw the controller, trying to relieve his anger. It was typical for him to get upset if he lost, but he had never thrown a controller before. I felt my adrenaline begin to rise. I was pissed. I didn't usually challenge him since he is 2 years older, but emotion overcame me. Don't throw the controller. You'll bust it and then we won't be able to play anymore just because you're a sore loser. Don't tell me what to do, he yelled back at me. Screaming soon became shoving, and pretty soon my mom yelled up the steps, ending the chaos. My mom didn't actually throw the PlayStation in the river, but it was one of the common threats throughout my childhood. Even if she were to throw something in the river, wouldn't it be difficult to do while driving? She had to drive 25 miles to work, including the 2-mile bridge over the mighty Mississippi River that connects Marquette, Iowa with Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin. Sometimes I was privileged to cross the bridge with my parents on occasional trips to Prairie. The pavement of Highway 18 begins to make a different sound 4 miles away from the Iowa-Wisconsin border. When I was younger, I intuitively thought this was the mighty Mississippi letting us know that we were close. I loved looking over the edges of the bridge, seeing the wide-open channel. I constantly gazed out the window at the bluffs that lined the borders of both states, the lights from the casino next to the bridge, and the numerous trees on the island that connects the two portions of the bridge. As a kid, I didn't think of the river as home, but after experiencing more of the world, this great river became more of an image of home for me. The Mississippi River is the second longest river in North America, beginning with its headwaters at Lake Itasca in north-central Minnesota. The river then flows along 2,552 miles down to the Gulf of Mexico. It varies in width from around 20 feet at Lake Itasca to an insane 11 miles in width at Lake Winnegaboshish near Benna, Minnesota. The speed of this mighty river varies based on the water level. On average, the water moves around 1.2 miles per hour at Lake Itasca and about 3 miles per hour at New Orleans. The Mississippi River forms boundaries of 10 different states with numerous metropolises as well as small towns situated on its banks. I've been blessed to have been able to cross the river in many different places, including a variety of large cities and small towns. Some of the amazing places along America's river that I have been to include Lake Itasca, Minnesota, and St. Louis, Missouri. After hearing stories about Lake Itasca, I longed to see it myself. The summer between my junior and senior year of high school, my parents, brother, and I took a trip to Winnipeg, Duluth, and Minneapolis. We decided to take somewhat of a detour on our trip from Winnipeg to Duluth because we wanted to see Lake Itasca. I really enjoyed the scenic views of tall trees with a slim opening in the distance for the road. After pulling into the parking lot, we followed a small group of people towards the lake. We followed a path for a little over a quarter of a mile and crossed a walking bridge over a small stream. Thinking this might actually be the headwaters itself, I stopped to take a picture. The people in front of us continued walking, so we decided to follow. Less than another quarter mile down the trail sat the actual lake. The lake seemed to extend for a couple miles over part of the horizon. It's not a massive lake by any means, but it sure is the beginning of something massive. People of all ages were walking across rocks that created a trail as well as a boundary between lake and river. The river is only about 25 feet wide and 2 feet deep at this point, so even the youngest and oldest of people were taking part in this interesting experience. I threw my shoes and socks off and decided to follow them. The cool water felt amazing on my sweaty feet. It was a warm August day, but the air was crisp, similar to fall back in Iowa. While soaking in God's glory, I realized how blessed I was to be here. While reminiscing about the river between Marquette and Prairie du Chien, I wondered how long it would take this water to get there. Furthermore, how long would it later take the same water to reach St. Louis? St. Louis. I had been there twice. The summer before 3rd grade and the summer before 7th grade. The summer before 7th grade we stayed only 2 blocks from the Gateway Arch and about 4 blocks away from the river. A nearby bridge connected St. Louis, Missouri with East St. Louis, Illinois. It wasn't a major highway, but cars could drive on it. Sidewalk bordered both sides of the bridge, something the bridge from back home lacked. But what made this bridge most unique to me was the fact that the subway line ran across this bridge below the cars and pedestrians. The locals told us horror stories about East St. Louis, but I wanted to go anyway. The middle schooler within me thought it would be really cool to go back to school in the fall and tell all my friends that I walked across the Mississippi River. My parents liked the idea, but my brother was a little cautious. He's always been scared of heights and wasn't a big fan of rivers either. After some sweet talking by both my parents and myself, we were able to convince him to come along. He walked at his own pace, carefully taking step after step. He was gaining confidence with every step, that is, until he felt the bridge begin to shake while the subway below us crossed into Illinois. The panicked look on his face made me burst out laughing, which pissed him off even more. We made it to the Illinois side and immediately turned around. The return trip was less eventful, but I was happy that we decided to do it. My dad told him, "Now you can say you walked across the mighty Mississippi." My brother's jaw dropped, realizing what he just did. He thought we had walked across the Missouri River instead. "I never would have crossed the bridge if I had known that was the Mississippi," he shouted. I replied, "Whatever, Drew. At least you survived." The next day we decided to take the train down a couple stops to see St. Louis's Union Station. On the way back, we decided not to get off the train at our scheduled stop and to ride it across the bridge. There's something else we haven't done, ride a train across the river. So, once again, I was thrilled to be doing something else that I thought was unique. We hopped off the train at the first stop in Illinois and soon boarded a train headed back to Missouri. My parents seemed to be enjoying it just as much as I was. While walking back to our hotel, my mom had the bright idea of driving across the bridge as well. She said a lot of people probably can't say that they walked, rode a train, and drove over the same bridge. A simple thing that means absolutely nothing, but was more than enjoyable for us on vacation. Right before we headed to Kansas City, we drove across that same bridge, checking off the small entry we had added to our bucket list just hours earlier. At the time, I didn't know the name of the bridge, but knew it was not like any other bridge I had seen before. Eads Bridge is a landmark for the city of St. Louis and a National Historic Landmark. It is the world's first steel truss bridge and is considered a true engineering marvel. This bridge was to serve as an expansion of the nation's railroad system. St. Louis needed a bridge across the Mississippi in order to survive. The bridge was designed by James Buchanan Eads, a self-educated engineer that had never built a bridge before. While construction began in 1867, it was not dedicated until July 4th of 1874. Little did I know that one day I would be living in a town along the Mississippi. I never had the intentions of living in a river town, but Loris brought me to the masterpiece on the Mississippi that is Dubuque, Iowa. This magnificent river that had become more of an image of home over the years now sits within view of where I sleep. The river gave me a sense of home when I was somewhat lacking one at the beginning of the school year. The move to college was somewhat abrupt, and I hadn't quite adjusted to life in Dubuque. A couple of friends and I drove down to the Riverwalk a few times. We listened to each other, but the river was also listening. There we sat, staring at the flowing river on a warm Sunday in September. The noise of cars and trucks crossing the Julian Dubuque Bridge was compromised by the wind and the sound of water splashing against the rocks. I once again felt the glory and grace of God within me while sitting along the river. I was home. The Riverwalk is now a special place that my friends and I visit on occasion when a deep talk is necessary. We don't want to drive down there for every little problem. This special place holds some of our darkest secrets, but is still thought of as a happy place. While I feel like I have experienced a large portion of the river, in reality I haven't even experienced half of it. I intend to explore more of this great river, especially parts south of St. Louis. Who knows? One day I might just make my permanent home somewhere alongside the mighty Mississippi. Regardless, I will always associate the river as a symbol of home, wide and mighty, and full of memories.